Okay, so we're almost to the end here. Next, I'd like you to add the missing bar lines according to the time signature. So remember, until the throughout this unit so far, we've talked about um, different note values. Okay, and you can take a look at the textbook and also your notes. Okay, generally, note values we're talking about how using a shape of a note that describes how long something lasts, and everything in music is proportional. So if you have a note that looks like a certain note, it doesn't tell you exactly how long, it tells you how long in relationship to other notes. Okay, and so for example, we talked about a few different note types. They are the whole note. Right? A whole note, if you divide it into two, would be two half notes. Right? So two half notes last the same time as a whole note. If you divide the half note into two, you have two quarter notes. Right? So that means two quarter notes last the same as as a half note. Also, four quarter notes last the same as a whole note. If you divide a quarter note into two, then you can have two eighth notes. Okay? And then remember, the eighth note is the one that has one flag. Or if you see it beamed together, right? They have one beam that connects both of the notes. Right? So it looks something like this. And then an eighth note, if you divide by two, it's going to have two flags. Okay, and so, or you can see it beamed together with two beams. Okay. That's a basic overview of the note durations in proportion. Okay, so this is a bit of math, but nothing that I think should be too challenging. Okay, so if you get confused, just come back to thinking about what is the proportion of each note. Now, for this exercise, we're adding missing bar lines to the time signature. All of the time signature we've talked about will be in 4/4. That means that each bar will have the equivalent of 4 beats. Okay, that's fine. So that's what the top number tells us. But what is a beat? Well, the bottom number, which is a 4, tells us that we're using a quarter note to equals 1 beat. Therefore, each bar will have the equivalent of 4 quarter notes. Because of that, okay, as I demonstrated in class, one way that I try to think about this is just to do a bit of math using 1 as a quarter note. Okay, so as I'm adding up the equivalent of 4 quarter notes, when I get to 4, then I'll put in a bar line. Okay, so for example, you have 1 quarter note here. Of course, that's one quarter note. Okay, these two eighth notes together, okay, because they're beamed together with one beam altogether, they're also equal to 1 quarter note. Okay, I have 4 16th notes here. 4 16th notes together equal 1 quarter note. Okay, and then also I have another 2 eighth notes here equal to 1 quarter note. That means that this is where I'm going to put in a bar line. Okay. Next, I have a half note, which is equal to 2 quarter notes, and then 1 quarter note, of course, 1, and 1 quarter note, 1. So next bar line would go here. Next, I have a quarter note. Of course, that's 1. Half note is 2. These two eighth notes together is 1 quarter note. So of course, then the next bar line would go here. Even though this is tied, okay, that doesn't matter because ties can go across bar lines. So don't let that throw you if you see that. Okay, and then I have one more bar here that's already completed with the printed bar line. So this is 1 1. This is also 1 quarter note. This, if it looks confusing, don't let it throw you. These two have two beams connected, right? So these two notes are 2 16th notes. So together they equal to an eighth note, which I'm putting 0.5 here because that is half of a quarter note. Okay, and of course this note here only has one beam connected to it. That means it's an eighth note. It's the same as an eighth note. Okay, so that's also 0.5. Right? You could also see these 3 notes notated without being beamed together. Okay, and if that's true, they would look something like that. Okay, so just because they're beamed together, don't let that throw you. Notice whether the beam is connected to the note. Okay, and we're counting the beams exactly the same as you would count rests. Here I have added some examples of unbeamed notes just to review. So for example, same as I've done before, I would count. I would just circle them. For frankly, it's easier for me at least. You can try that if that's helpful. These two eighth notes together is 1 quarter note. Here's another 1 quarter note. Here, this is the same rhythm as what we've seen before here. Okay, so these two 16th notes is 0.5, and then this eighth note is 0.5. So of course that together is 1. Now I have a dotted eighth note here. Okay, remember that a dot, okay, by adding a dot, that dot lasts the same as half of the value that the note is attached to. Okay, so for example, if this is an eighth note, right, that dot lasts half of that, which is a 16th note. Okay, so I can do the math here. The eighth note, of course, is half. Okay, the dot here, right, is half of a half, so that would be 0.25 of a quarter note. Okay, and then this a 16th note by itself would be also 0.25 of a quarter note. So together, this rhythm, this dotted eighth plus 16th, would equal to 1 quarter note. Okay, which is why I would then put a bar line here. Okay, don't let that throw you. Okay, if you see a dotted eighth note, generally speaking, chances are you're gonna see a 16th note that's right in front of it or right after it. Okay, because this pattern, this dotted eighth and 16th together, that's equal to 1 quarter note. And that's a very common rhythm that you're gonna see. Okay, it's just different ways of dividing that one beat. This we've explained. This is 1 quarter note. Okay, this is 1, and then also this is 1, of course. So then we're in another bar line goes here. Another dotted note here. Okay, so a dotted quarter note. Remember the dot here is lasting half of the value of the note that is attached to. So let's say the quarter note, of course, is 1. Then the dot is 0.5. So together, this is 1.5. It's followed by an eighth note. Okay, so that's another 0.5. So together I have 2 quarter notes so far. These two eighth notes together is 1 quarter note, and of course this quarter note is 1. So here I have reached the limit of 4 quarter notes. Finally, I have a half note, which is 2 quarter notes. Here I have another similar pattern to this. Okay, however, in this case, the 16th note is going before the dotted eighth note. Okay, so this is together the 16th note and the dotted eighth note is equal to 1 quarter note. Okay, and then this together 1 quarter note, and of course that is 4 quarter notes. Okay, in this instance, okay, these 4 16th notes together is 1 quarter note. That's 1 quarter note, 1, 1, and then you would put a bar line there. This whole note, of course, is lasting equal to 4, equivalent of 4 quarter notes. So that's it. No other notes needed. Okay. And then I have these 2 eighth notes is 1 quarter note. These 2 eighth notes, 1 quarter note. Here, even though this looks a little weird, again, don't let that throw you. Okay. Let's count them one by one. This eighth note is last half of a quarter note. Okay. Of course, this quarter note is 1 quarter note, and then we end with an eighth note, another half. Okay, so if you count all of this up, 1 plus 1 plus 0.5 plus 1 plus 0.5, all of this equals to 4, and that's why there's a bar line there. Finally, you have 1 quarter note here with the 2 eighth notes, 1, 1, and 1. Okay, so then you have a bar line there. Same type of rhythm here. Again, don't let that throw you. This is half of a quarter note, and half of a quarter note. Okay, together that's 2 so far, and then here is another 2 quarter notes. Right, so then you would have another bar line here, and then finally we end with two beats here in the half note, and then also 4 eighth notes, which together also equal to the total of 2 quarter notes. So here are 4 quarter notes again. Okay, so this is an overview of how you would look at how to add bar lines.